After 5 years inside, Isaiah Bone is ready to start a new life. But a vicious crime lord is bringing terror to the streets. And he is the only one who can step up.
Inside a maximum security prison, a gang makes their way toward the bathroom where a man named Bone is. Before they arrive, Danny warns Bone that a gang is targeting killers like him. As the gang members reach the bathroom, Danny exits, leaving Bone alone to face them. The gang leader confronts Bone, warning that he will regret not joining their gang. In a calm yet intimidating manner, Bone takes off his shirt and offers them a chance to leave without a fight. The gang leader laughs off Bone's warning and attacks him. However, Bone is quick and skillful, swiftly disarming the leader and stabbing him. The other gang members rush to attack Bone, but his superior fighting skills allow him to defeat them in seconds. As they lie defeated, Bone tells the gang leader to spread the word. Anyone who tries to harm him will face the same fate. After this confrontation, Bone leaves the prison and goes to a hotel to book a room. Upon arrival, he meets Tamara, the owner of the hotel. Tamara, sensing trouble, escorts him to his room and firmly tells him that she doesn't want any problems from him. Bone reassures her, saying he doesn't want any trouble either. With a place to stay secured, Bone heads to a local arena known for its street fights and betting. He watches a brutal fight between two fighters, observing the intense atmosphere. During the match, a fleet of luxury cars arrives, and James, a notorious figure, steps out with his men. The fight organizer, a man named Pinball, takes the microphone and announces the next fight. It features Hammerman, a formidable and undefeated fighter who works for James. As the fight begins, Hammerman dominates his opponent with ease, landing powerful blows that leave the other fighter incapacitated. The crowd roars in approval as Hammerman wins the fight. Pinball, fulfilling his role, collects the betting money and hands it over to James. After the event, Pinball gets into his car, ready to leave, but is startled to find Bone sitting in the back seat. Initially, Pinball thinks Bone intends to rob him, but Bone quickly clarifies his intentions. He asks Pinball to arrange a fight between him and Hammerman. Pinball is skeptical, noting that Bone is an unknown fighter and explaining that organizing such a high-profile match would require a significant amount of money. Despite Pinball's initial refusal, Bone's determination and confidence suggest that he won't take no for an answer, setting the stage for an intriguing and potentially explosive confrontation. Bone hands Pinball $250, saying it's all he has. Meanwhile, James receives a call from an important figure named Franklin, who instructs James to eliminate a man named Daryl. James agrees, but he soon notices Franklin is watching from a car nearby. Later, Pinball brings Bone to James, introducing him as the new fighter. James quickly spots that Bone has been staring at his girlfriend, Angela, which provokes him. He warns Angela not to look at Bone that way again. Pinball also cautions Bone to avoid any further interactions with Angela. James then leaves with his men. Pinball arranges Bone's first fight against a massive opponent. However, Bone notices that this opponent moves slowly. When the fight begins, Bone swiftly lands a fatal blow, winning the match within seconds. Pleased with Bone's performance, Pinball tells him that he will organize more fights for him outside the city to build his reputation. Eventually, Pinball plans to arrange a match between Bone and Hammerman. As they talk, Pinball reveals more about Angela's past. He explains that Angela was married and pregnant by another man before James forcibly took her, framed her husband for murder, and had him imprisoned. James then hid Angela and her child in an unknown location. Angela, now addicted to drugs, leads a miserable life. Meanwhile, James and his men are having dinner with Daryl and his girlfriend, the person Franklin ordered James to get rid of. James asks Daryl's girlfriend to play some music, and then he starts singing, encouraging everyone to join in. Suddenly, James pulls out a sword and stabs Daryl, instructing Hammerman to turn up the music and continue the assault until Daryl is dead. Back at the hotel, Bone reflects on the day's events and prepares for the challenges ahead. We also see James at home, where he angrily confronts Angela for not giving him any attention. The next day, James is with one of his men, Teddy, who shows him a video of Bone winning a fight. James instructs Teddy to gather all the information he can about Bone. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Tamara notices Gerard meeting with street gangs and warns him to stay away from them. Old Roberto asks the gang to leave, but they refuse and curse at him. Bone arrives, and they quickly flee. Pinball then picks up Bone in his car, and they go to watch a street fight between two girls. One of the girls, Vendetta, wins the fight, Pinball arranges a fight between Bone and one of Tattoo's fighters. Before the fight begins, Bone observes his opponent's shoulder dropping as he lands blows. When the fight starts, Bone defeats his opponent with a single fatal blow. Overjoyed, Pinball tells Tattoo that Bone can defeat 2 fighters at once. Tattoo agrees, and Pinball feels the stakes have doubled. During the fight, Bone quickly takes down the first fighter with a powerful blow and breaks the second fighter's hand. Bone then tells Tattoo he's ready to fight again if the bet is doubled. Tattoo sends 10 fighters to face Bone, who defeats them all with crushing blows. Finally, Bone forcibly takes the money from Tattoo after Tattoo pulls a gun on him. Vendetta became obsessed with Bone and gave him her number. Bone continued his training, and Pinball organized street fights for him, which Bone won consistently. Their success brought them considerable fame and wealth. Bone also participated in high-stakes fights, emerging victorious in each one. Back at the hotel, Tamara noticed Bone had a slight injury and treated it. When Bone asked about the children with her, Tamara explained that she had been caring for them for almost 3 years, with Gerard being under her care for only a year. Tamara admired Tachi, and Bone began teaching her the basics of the sport. The next day, she watched as Bone taught Gerard as well. Meanwhile, James was pursuing a girl in his car, suspecting she had leaked information about him. Despite her pleas for mercy, James ran her over with the car. Roberto witnessed the incident, and James ordered Teddy to leave. The date of Bone's fight with Hummerman arrived. Hummerman, who was with Teddy in the car, was doping before the fight. Pinball confidently told James that Bone would win. During the fight, Hummerman attempted to land blows, but Bone skillfully dodged them and countered with multiple hits, leaving Hummerman unable to respond. Bone eventually knocked him out with a powerful kick. Pinball declared Bone the winner and went to collect the winnings from an enraged James. Despite his anger, James invited Bone to dinner to celebrate his victory. Pinball and Bone head to James's house, where Bone notices a girl named Angela. James catches Bone looking at her and calls him into his office. There, James shares his respect for all combat sports and shows Bone a samurai sword, but Bone admits he's not skilled with swords. James then talks about Franklin, a major arms dealer who runs a lucrative international fighting tournament. Franklin has an undefeated fighter, and James proposes a $5 million fight between Bone and this fighter, promising Bone a fortune and a chance to retire from fighting. Bone says he'll consider it. Meanwhile, James sees Bone's attention on Angela, who is searching for hidden drugs. James summons Angela and asks her to persuade Bone to fight. Angela enters the room, but instead grabs a gun and threatens Bone. Bone recognizes her as Danny's wife, a connection he knows well since Danny, his best friend, recommended Angela and their son before he was killed. Danny ended up in prison because of James, who also hired a gang to eliminate Danny while he was incarcerated. Bone initially blames Angela for her circumstances, but she reveals that James forced her to stay with him after killing her husband and taking her son, whose whereabouts she still doesn't know. Bone assures her that he knows where her son is and promises to reunite them. The two spend some time together, appearing to enjoy each other's company. Bone then asks James if he can take Angela out for a while, to which James agrees. Bone takes Angela to a rehabilitation center for her drug addiction and then brings her to see her son. Meanwhile, James visits Franklin at his mansion, offering $5 million for a fight between Bone and Franklin's undefeated fighter. Franklin initially refuses, speaking to James with racist overtones, but eventually agrees to arrange the fight, set to start in 3 days. Bone is later shocked to learn that the police found Roberto dead. Tamara is devastated by Roberto's death, and Bone discovers that James's men killed Roberto because he witnessed James murdering a girl. While comforting Tamara, Bone is surprised by James's sudden appearance. James is astonished that Bone could leave Angela, whom James had taken from him, and be with Tamara. James then tells Bone that he has arranged the fight with Franklin's fighter. However, Bone surprises James by saying he is still thinking about it and eventually decides to refuse the fight. James was furious and revealed that he had bet $5 million. As James was about to draw his sword, Bone blocked him and struck him. In a desperate move, James grabbed Tamara, pointed a gun at her, and threatened to kill her and all the children she was raising if Bone didn't fight. After James left, Bone urged Tamara to take the children and leave temporarily. Reluctantly, Tamara agreed but made it clear that she didn't want Bone around when she returned. Meanwhile, James instructed Teddy to eliminate Bone and Tamara. Hummerman went to meet Pinball, demanding to know Bone's whereabouts. He assaulted Pinball, but Bone suddenly appeared, killed Hummerman, and took down James's other men. James's daughter approached him, informing him of Angela's location as she was being treated at the same center. James then ordered Teddy to kill Angela. But when they entered the room, they found Pinball there. Pointing a gun at them, Bone appeared and swiftly incapacitated and killed them all, while Pinball killed Teddy. When James tried to contact Teddy, Bone answered, informing him that he had killed all his men and was coming for him next. James sent his location to Bone and called Franklin, insisting that the fight should happen today. Bone heads to Franklin's mansion, following the location James sent him. Upon entering, James finds Franklin along with several important men gathered to watch the fight between Bone and Franklin's fighter. James threatens Bone, stating that if he refuses to fight, he will kill both Bone and Tamara. Bone responds that he will kill James for murdering his incarcerated friend Danny. James, aware that Bone wants to protect Angela, admits to killing Danny and Roberto, not realizing that Bone was recording the confession. Bone sends the video to Pinball, who informs the police about James. Franklin's fighter arrives, boasting that he will kill Bone. As the fight begins, Bone recognizes his opponent's high skill level, but ultimately manages to win after landing several blows. However, Bone surprises everyone by surrendering before the match officially ends, causing James to lose his $5 million bet. Enraged, James draws his sword and attempts to kill Bone. Franklin instructs his men to give Bone a sword to ensure a fair fight. James is shocked to discover that Bone is skilled with a sword, contrary to what he had previously thought. Bone cuts off James's arm and flees as the police arrive to arrest James, who threatens Franklin, accusing him of betrayal. Angela completes her treatment and goes to the hotel to reunite with Gerard, her son, who Tamara had been raising. Angela and her son are finally reunited. Tamara realizes that Bone was behind their reunion and understands that his reason for coming to the hotel was to protect Gerard. Angela asks Bone to stay with them at the hotel, but he tells her that his mission is over. He asks her to take care of Gerard and Tamara before bidding them farewell. Bone also says goodbye to Pinball, telling him that he will never fight again. James, now imprisoned in the same facility where Bone started at the beginning of the movie, faces a grim fate. Franklin orders his gang to beat James after he threatens him. The movie concludes with this scene. Thank you for watching.